American Comics. My Warhammer Simulator Chapter 231 to 240. I am Gellerus Herodicus, Chapter Master of the Truthseekers Chapter. Inquisitor, I will ask only once, why have you come? The deep voice emanated slowly from within the metal helmet of the Astartes Chapter Master named Gellerus. You quickly scanned the ancient Terminator power armor he wore, and his hands, which bore no weapons. You seemed to exhale slightly within your rebreather. To investigate the truth and prove the innocence of the Truthseekers Chapter, you said to the Chapter Master without hesitation. My intuition tells me that you are not lying, a rare thing indeed. Chapter Master Gellerus slowly activated his Terminator power armor and walked towards you. In an instant, the terrifying aura of countless battles fought over years and months rushed towards you. Even the Ogryn, usually slow-witted and intellectually challenged, turned their massive heads to stare directly at Chapter Master Gellerus. However, you felt no fear. You activated your power armor and stepped forward, meeting his gaze without any hint of trepidation. My intuition tells me that you may be a trustworthy human, but not necessarily a trustworthy inquisitor. Chapter Master Gellerus's icy gaze seemed to penetrate the helmet's lenses, focusing intently on your silver skull. Thank you for your high opinion. I can now determine that the Truthseekers Chapter has not engaged in heretical acts, nor does it harbor the foolish intention of rebellion, because I am still alive at this moment. But, esteemed Chapter Master, can you tell me why your chapter has repeatedly refused the convocations of the Inquisition? Has your intuition not warned you of the Inquisition's reaction? Or of my arrival as an Inquisitor? You slightly raised your chin, obscured by the rebreather. You gazed at his blue metal helmet, speaking neither humbly nor arrogantly. No wonder you are an elite Inquisitor from the Inquisition, Steel Skull, able to remain rational even when facing me. Come with me, Inquisitor, and I will give you a reasonable explanation. Chapter Master Gellerus seemed to peer deeply at you through his helmet's lenses. Without hesitation, he activated his ancient Terminator power armor and turned to walk towards the buildings of the chapter's fortress. You shook your throbbing silver skull slightly, just then, accompanied by a series of strange rustling sounds. From the Hive City ruins around you, one by one, fully armed Astartes space marines gradually revealed their towering figures. Before your very eyes, they lowered the bolters they had been holding at the ready. Then, one by one, the Astartes space marines brazenly brushed past you and the Ogryn squad, heading into the interior of the fortress. You took a deep breath, trying to calm the rapidly rising blood pressure in your silver skull. You seemed to hear a low grumble from Smart Head Grab Root Treasure. You instinctively turned back to glare at him. Smart Head Grab Root Treasure couldn't help but widen his mismatched eyes, his thick lips pouting with grievance. You raised your hand and gently patted your silver skull. You led the Ogryn squad into the Truthseekers Chapter's always open entrance. At this moment, those Astartes space marines who had just entered the enclosed environment of the building were removing their metal helmets, breathing in the clean, recycled air. As soon as you stepped inside the building, they turned their heads expressionlessly, watching your every move with indifferent eyes. You also removed the rebreather that covered most of your face. You ordered the Ogryn squad behind you to stand by. Without changing your expression, you walked past the Astartes space marines, heading towards Chapter Master Gellerus, who was standing behind them. Chapter Master Gellerus gently removed his metal helmet. He was a weathered man with 5 slightly reflective golden service studs embedded above his brow, and a face seemingly covered in deep lines like axe marks. Esteemed Chapter Master Gellerus, I await your considered response. I hope you will think carefully before answering, because your answer concerns the life and death of the entire chapter and even the entire planet. You slightly raised your chin, gazing into his narrow eyes that seemed to hold a hint of weariness, and said sincerely, Inquisitor, please come with me, this is not the place to talk. Chapter Master Gellerus nodded slightly, expressionless. He tucked his metal helmet under a strong arm and turned to walk towards a room not far away. You hesitated for a moment, then followed his steps. The heavy metal door opened automatically, once the two of you had entered. You seemed to hear the faint sound of some kind of protective device activating. Then, Chapter Master Gellerus's deep voice echoed once more in the room where you were the only 2 occupants. Inquisitor, what is your view of the Inquisition and the role of an Inquisitor? You can speak freely. I, Gellerus, swear by the Truthseekers Chapter's battle honor and the name of the Emperor, that even under the threat of death, I will not reveal a word. Chapter Master Gellerus, his expression solemn, stared directly at you and spoke slowly. You narrowed your dry eyes slightly, staring at Chapter Master Gellerus in silence for a moment. The Inquisition is an imperial agency that receives the sacred commands of the Emperor to eliminate all heresies, aliens, and even chaos demons that threaten the Imperium of Man. We are executioners, judges, and the arbiters of all. Chapter Master Gellerus, what do you want to know or express? Please, speak plainly. At that moment, your silver skull reflected a cold light under the room's illumination. The Truth Seekers chapter has served the Inquisition for thousands of years, almost from the chapter's founding. We have experienced glorious eras, and we have also experienced the low tides of near extinction. For the Imperium of Man and the glory of the Emperor, these are not insurmountable difficulties, and the innate resilience of Astartes Space Marines requires the test and tempering of numerous crises. But, Inquisitor, do you know how many innocent Imperial citizens the Truth Seekers chapter has personally eliminated over these thousands of years? According to the rough calculations of successive chapter masters, the minimum number is around 300 million. That is to say, they were not heretics, not aliens, and had no connection to the Chaos Traders. Merely accidentally witnessing or unfortunately being located near the battlefield of an Inquisition operation, their lives were ended completely at that moment. This is why the Truth Seekers chapter is unwilling to return to the Inquisition's battlefields. We are tired of the days of indiscriminate killing. We only want to fight for the Imperium of Man now, and for the Emperor. But we will never fight for the Inquisition, never. Mobile station new revision and upgrade address, data and bookmarks are synchronized with the computer station, GG free and fresh reading. You stood there expressionlessly, unable to stop yourself from sighing. You had vaguely guessed the reason why they were unwilling to heed the Inquisition's summons after seeing the planetary governor willing to risk offending the Inquisitor to come forward, and after witnessing firsthand the harsh environment of the Truth Seekers chapter's fortress monastery and the Space Marines' contented attitude. I originally wanted to explain to you the difficult situation of the Imperium of Man in this cold universe, but upon second thought, you, who have fought countless years for the Inquisition and the Emperor, probably understand this situation better than I do. Since you still chose this path, then it proves that you have reached some kind of limit. You slightly widened your eyes, gazing at the indifferent-looking Gellerus chapter master, and said in a deep voice, Venerable chapter master Gellerus, I will send an investigation report to the Inquisition in my capacity as an Inquisitor, stating that the Truth Seekers chapter has suffered great losses due to multiple incursions by genestealers into the planetary fortress monastery. And therefore, they are unable to heed the Inquisition's repeated summons. After a long-term investigation by the Inquisitor, no heretical behavior has been found within the chapter. All I can personally do is this. As for the next summons or investigation from the Inquisition, I am powerless to help. Venerable, Steel Skull, Inquisitor, all the Astartes Space Marines of the Truth Seekers chapter will firmly remember your assistance. We will never forget your kindness. Chapter Master Gellerus, driving his Terminator armor, stepped forward and gazed at you with his narrow eyes, saying in a very solemn tone. You slightly shook your silver metal-covered head. You had an in-depth discussion with Chapter Master Gellerus. You unexpectedly gained a deep friendship from the Truth Seekers chapter. You temporarily led the Ogrin squad to stay at their chapter fortress monastery. Soon after, with the help of the Hive Governor, you used the local astropaths to send the final report on this investigation operation to the Inquisition. In the second month, you got along quite well with the Astartes Space Marines of the Truth Seekers chapter. You could even go deeper into the Hive City together, hunting those terrifying Hive creatures. Even your old model of power armor was completely upgraded and replaced by the Tech Marines in the chapter, who put a lot of thought into pleasing the machine spirit. Even though your physical fitness could not compare to the Astartes Space Marines, the many functions of the power armor were far superior to ordinary power armor. Even your deputy, the clever Katrud, received a personal gift from the first company captain of the chapter, an unusually heavy two-handed power hammer. Just when you thought that everything would gradually calm down and become completely peaceful, the captain of the Cobra-class destroyer, which had been staying in the planet's orbit, sent you a private message. The female Inquisitor Amani from the Ordo Malleus unexpectedly detected traces of demons in the Hive City of this industrial planet. Moreover, the source of the demons even needed to be traced back to the lower levels of the Hive City, which was the location of the Truth Seekers chapter's fortress monastery. Faced with such important news, you seemed to have no hesitation. You immediately concealed it from the Truth Seekers chapter and ordered the captain of the Cobra-class destroyer to conduct a transstellar astropathic communication. A squad of battle sisters from the Order of the Bloody Rose, belonging to the Convent Sanctorum, will obey your orders and arrive on this industrial planet in the near future, becoming one of your powerful aides. After careful analysis, you stopped the reckless action of the female Inquisitor Amani, who intended to enter the chapter and question them. You took the many traces and evidence of the existence of demons discovered by this zealous female Inquisitor and found Chapter Master Gellerus, who was dealing with chapter affairs. You told the other party the importance of this matter, and at the same time, you also bluntly stated, you might be able to tolerate small heretical behaviors and thoughts within the chapter. But when it comes to major events involving chaos demons or even the entire industrial planet, you hope that the Truth Seekers chapter can understand your position as an Inquisitor and cooperate with your investigation. The expressionless chapter master Gellerus was not angry. On the contrary, after careful consideration, he ordered his bodyguard, a total of 9 Astartes space marines, to become your guards and help you track down the traces of the chaos demons. You immediately led this Astartes space marine guard team and your Ogren squad, who had been having a pretty good time recently, to carefully investigate the entire chapter fortress monastery. You unexpectedly discovered some traces left behind by evil chaos rituals using the flesh and blood of hive creatures and mutants in the edge of the chapter fortress monastery. You instantly felt the seriousness of the matter. Just as you were planning to use Chapter Master Gellerus's order to screen the Astartes Space Marines in the chapter one by one, the Truth Seekers chapter received a warning from the planetary governor. A local defense force that had lost control suddenly cut off the large transport elevators between the upper hive and the lower hive. In other words, the only passage to leave the hive city was completely cut off. Yu Khonshu. Before you could discuss and communicate with Chapter Master Gellerus, you received a private communication from the female Inquisitor Amani. The other party started by accusing you of sympathizing with the Truth Seekers chapter, who were implicated with demons. If she guessed correctly, then the greatest possibility was that you, the Inquisitor, had also been bewitched by demons. Perhaps the demons themselves were created by you in conjunction with the Truth Seekers chapter. In summary, your shameful behavior will be impeached by the Inquisition, and you may be stripped of your inquisitorial status. At the same time, you have also lost the command authority over the battle sister squad that is about to arrive. You suddenly took a deep breath. You were completely amused by the other party's shameless words and behavior. However, just as you were planning to argue with the female Inquisitor, a sentence of memories that subconsciously repeated itself in the depths of your mind made you break out in a cold sweat. Amani, you didn't accidentally board that destroyer, preparing to hitch a ride as a demon hunter Inquisitor, did you? Only 3 people know about my contact with the Battle Sister squad. Myself, the captain of the Cobra destroyer, and the astropath in charge of communications. The astropath will not pay attention to you at all, nor will they get involved in the internal affairs of the Inquisition. The captain himself is not a person who can't keep secrets, especially when it comes to such important matters, let alone my personal relationship with him as an Inquisitor. Amani, please tell me, how did you know that the Battle Sister squad is about to arrive? Why would an Ordo Malleus Inquisitor know the internal orders of the Ordo Hereticus? Who exactly are you? Or should I ask, what exactly do you want? You didn't hear any response from Inquisitor Amani. Close black lens bracket. You were unilaterally hung up on by the other party. Close black lens bracket. You closed your dry eyes, the repeatedly throbbing blood vessels and nerves constantly pulsating inside your silver metal skull. Close black lens bracket. Amani may not be an Inquisitor of the Demon Hunters at all. Close black lens bracket. She may be a failsafe deliberately arranged by the Inquisition, specifically to restrain your investigation. Close black lens bracket. If she is indeed an Inquisitor of the Demon Hunters, then it involves the intricate factional struggles within the Inquisition. Close black lens bracket. You slightly relaxed your furrowed brow, and the gradually subsiding headache and blood pressure made you subconsciously let out a breath. Close black lens bracket. You seem to have forgotten some more important clues and possibilities. Close black lens bracket. Either the Inquisition doesn't believe my investigation report and thinks my relationship with the chapter is too close, and I have become a heretic, or someone wants to use the fanatics of the demon hunters, intending to use the righteousness of eliminating demons to force an Astartes chapter to rebel. It should be like this, right? Close black lens bracket. You took a deep breath with a blank expression. Close black lens bracket. You drove your power armor to the corner of the private room. Close black lens bracket. You re-shouldered the flamer filled with promethium, and a bolter presented to you by the chapter master of the Gellers. Close black lens bracket. Your fully armed behavior attracted the attention of the Ogren squad. Close black lens bracket. Smart boy Grabguts wiggled his fat ass, approached you, and asked, widening his mismatched eyes. Close black lens bracket. Boss, what's up? Are the angels misbehaving again? Don't worry, we'll help you smack their faces. Close black lens bracket. Grabguts, get your lads rearmed. Our enemies are coming, this time. I'm afraid we need to lend the angels a hand. You said to Smart boy Grabguts with a solemn expression. Close black lens bracket. Smart boy Grabguts scratched his bald scalp with a bewildered look, and immediately ordered all members of the Ogren squad to prepare. Close black lens bracket. You found Chapter Master Geller, who was dispatching a scout squad to investigate the situation in the hive tunnels. Close black lens bracket. You told him in detail about Inquisitor Amani's series of heretical behaviors. Close black lens bracket. At the same time, you also revealed to Chapter Master Geller the major news that a Battle Sisters squad was about to arrive here. Close black lens bracket. Chapter Master Geller didn't seem to show any surprise. Close black lens bracket. He immediately issued an order for all Astartes to prepare for battle immediately. Close black lens bracket. Accompanied by the swift actions of the Astartes, eager to fight, the entire chapter's garrison seemed to enter a long-awaited battle atmosphere. Close black lens bracket. Inquisitor, Steel Skull, I am very sorry that you have been implicated. I will order my bodyguard to safely escort you out of the hive. You can tell the outside world that we, the Truth Seekers chapter, detained you and threatened you to make an investigation report that violated the orders of the Inquisition. Chapter Master Geller said to you in a calm tone. Close black lens bracket. Chapter Master Geller, do I look like the kind of person who is greedy for life and afraid of death? Since someone wants to use me, then don't dislike my metal skull for being smelly and hard. You patted the hard skull covered in silver metal expressionlessly. Chapter Master Geller stared at you deeply. Close black lens bracket. He suddenly showed a gentle smile that you had never seen before. Close black lens bracket. My intuition tells me that you are sincerely helping us, Inquisitor, Steel Skull. Fighting alongside you will be a great honor for the Truth Seekers chapter. Chapter Master Geller raised his metal palm and heavily patted your thick shoulder armor. Close black lens bracket. You blinked your eyes slightly and grinned a faint smile. Close black lens bracket. In the third month, an Astartes scout squad, relying on the power of their power armor and extremely abundant stamina, managed to climb through the passage of a large transport elevator and reach the defense line of the Planetary Defense Force. Close black lens bracket. When the roar of bolters rang out, close black lens bracket, this Planetary Defense Force, which obeyed the orders of Inquisitor Amani, immediately surrendered to the Truth Seekers chapter. Close black lens bracket. When you and Chapter Master Geller arrived at the upper hive via the large transport elevator, close black lens bracket. The scout squad of only 20 men had completely controlled the situation. Close black lens bracket. One planetary defense force after another was carrying out the defense tasks of the hive according to your orders. Close black lens bracket. However, a series of bad news quickly came to you. Close black lens bracket. That innocent planetary governor was deliberately murdered, and even Inquisitor Amani herself was missing. Even a large-scale search of the hive's civilians yielded no clues. Close black lens bracket. At the same time, the captain of the Cobra destroyer was forced to obey the orders of another Inquisitor and moved away from the planet's orbit. At the same time, the other party also reported the heretical events occurring on this industrial planet to the Battle Sisters. Close black lens bracket. In other words, the Truth Seekers chapter and you, as a heretical Inquisitor, have completely lost the opportunity to explain the whole matter clearly. Close black lens bracket. The battle between you and the Battle Sisters squad that is about to arrive is now unavoidable. Close black lens bracket. Chapter Master Geller seemed to have expected this. Close black lens bracket. He immediately ordered the Astartes in the chapter's garrison to deploy for battle based on the entire hive. Close black lens bracket. A large Deimos-class cruiser belonging to the Truthseekers chapter, escorted by several Sword-class frigates, gradually moved away from the industrial planet, disguised as a foreign ship from another planet. Close black lens bracket. According to Chapter Master Geller's plan, this would be one of the backup means for the Truthseekers chapter to evacuate from this place. Close black lens bracket. At the same time, ancient Lehman Russ tanks were driven out of the long-sealed armory by the Planetary Defense Force, and according to Chapter Master Geller's orders, they were ambushed near the entrance of the hive one by one. Close black lens bracket. You led your Ogryn squad and 9 Astartes away from the entrance of the hive for the time being. Close black lens bracket. You silently watched as one swift Astartes after another carried heavy weapons and entered their predetermined encirclement. Close black lens bracket. You seemed to notice the eager anticipation of the impending battle among those Astartes who served as guards. Close black lens bracket. You vaguely sensed something was wrong. Close black lens bracket. You believed that the development of all the current events had exceeded your control. Close black lens bracket. You reviewed the entire process of the incident once again, but seemed to find nothing wrong. Close black lens bracket. A series of sudden events forced you to completely oppose the Battle Sisters squad that you had personally mobilized. Close black lens bracket. As time gradually passed, both the Truthseekers chapter and the Planetary Defense Force were fully prepared. Yu Khonshu, waiting for the arrival of the Battle Sisters. Close black lens bracket. However, when one landing pod and Thunderhawk transport after another streaked across the dry night sky of the industrial planet like a scattering of heavenly maidens, descending towards the hive. Close black lens bracket. A small idea that emerged from the depths of your heart slowly occupied your entire mind, causing you to gradually clench the heavy handle of the flamer. Close black lens bracket. Why am I so convinced that the Truthseekers chapter is definitely not heretical? Is it the influence of everything I have seen with my own eyes, or am I preemptively thinking that Astartes who treat the hive's population so well and would rather disobey the Inquisition several times for the lives of innocent civilians would definitely not be entangled with chaos? Close black lens bracket. Then, are the chaos rituals in the chapter's garrison and other clues about the traces of demons really the deliberate framing of demon hunter Inquisitor Amani? Or, because of my partiality towards the Astartes and my deliberate suspicion of the Inquisition, I subconsciously ignored all kinds of information? Close black lens bracket. Why is Chapter Master Geller in an attitude of being prepared to fight against Imperial forces from the beginning? Even if it would suffer some losses, shouldn't he also contact the Battle Sisters and try to prove the chapter's loyalty? As long as there are Battle Sisters as a guarantee, even the Inquisition would not be difficult. And why do most of the Astartes look like they can't wait to fight? Close black lens bracket. Emperor on high. I cannot guarantee whether there are misunderstandings and misinterpretations here. Close black lens bracket. But this style of acting that reveals strangeness and all kinds of coincidences everywhere. Why didn't I notice it earlier? Close black lens bracket. Emperor protect. This war that is about to break out is most likely a conspiracy of Tzeentch demons. Close black lens bracket. Dominican-type landing capsules crashed heavily onto the wasteland far from the Hive City entrance, scattering countless gravel and dust. The roar of engines from the Thunderhawk transport aircraft echoed throughout the Hive City's airspace. Accompanying the low-altitude circling of numerous Thunderhawk transport aircraft, 5 lithe figures clad in blood-red power armor would rapidly emerge from each Dominican-type landing capsule. Battle Sisters wearing Sawbot standard-issue metal helmets gripped promethium-filled flamers in their hands. Attached to their power armor's waists were chainswords, glinting with a hint of cold light. Simultaneously, Battle Sisters clutching Godwind-patterned bolt guns and storm bolt guns jumped from the still-landing Thunderhawk transports, their high-heeled, thick-soled magnetic boots stomping heavily onto the parched ground. Beneath the muzzles of the bolt guns they gripped, bayonet-like blades that seemed to faintly reflect the night, pierced the air with a subtle, high-pitched whine. Battle Sisters of the Order of the Bloody Rose. The Holy Emperor watches over us, and the soul of Saint Mina shelters us beneath the Golden Throne. Roar! Advance! Battle Sisters! Let us tear the heretic to shreds and burn them to ash. A canoness wearing a Sabbat Celestine pattern metal helmet abruptly raised a stout arm encased in blood-red armor. A power claw, shimmering with a field of azure energy, faintly buzzed. Above the power pack, a sacred banner of pure white, stained with specks of blood, flapped violently in the sudden gust of wind. You could faintly hear the roars and exhortations of the Battle Sisters' supreme commander in the wind. You took a deep breath, subconsciously tightening your grip on the cold handle of the flamer in your palm. You couldn't bear to watch these Battle Sisters, loyal to the Emperor and the Imperium of Man, charge headlong into a carefully laid ambush by the Astartes chapter. Especially after you realized that this was likely a conspiracy deliberately orchestrated by the demon Tzeentch. However, you seemed to be too late to prevent this tragedy from unfolding. In a moment of inspiration, you suddenly widened your dry eyes. You turned to look at the cleaverhead Grabnock not far away. You silently made a series of complex gestures that only the two of you understood, a simple yet extremely dangerous plan forming in your mind. The cleaverhead Grabnock, who was constantly scratching his fat buttocks with his thick fingers, paused slightly. Then, understanding, he even subconsciously swallowed the yawn he had just begun. Cleaverhead Grabnock couldn't help but purse his thick lips. He vigorously patted each of the ogrins gathered around him, while carefully winking. At the same time, he hoisted the incredibly heavy power hammer and walked towards an Astartes space marine not far from him. "Hey there, angel brother. I want to show you a great treasure." Cleaverhead Grabnock, straining to widen his mismatched eyes, grinned, seizing the brief moment the other turned to look back. He suddenly and forcefully swung the power hammer he was carrying on his shoulder. Accompanied by the fleeting hum of the energy field, the incredibly heavy power hammer smashed through the opponent's metal helmet and the entire head it contained. An Astartes space marine lost his head in the blink of an eye. Only a tall body remained, still spurting hot blood, collapsing heavily to the ground. Traitor! The Astartes space marines scattered around reacted almost instantly. They abruptly turned, raised the bolt guns in their hands, and were about to pull the trigger. However, a sniper laser from the gunner Ogren suddenly tore through the air, hitting another Astartes space marine's helmet visor with incredible precision. The scorching and deadly red laser instantly pierced the weakest point on the metal helmet, burning away the opponent's entire head in the blink of an eye. At the same moment, 5 melee Ogrins and 1 Bulgrin, wielding metal shields, roared furiously, their voices echoing through the night. Their massive bodies, even larger and stronger than the Astartes space marines, carried a terrifying, unstoppable momentum. They launched a final, desperate charge towards the remaining Astartes space marines. The next moment, the violent roar of bolt guns filled the air. Bolts streaking through the air struck the massive bodies of the melee Ogrins with incredible precision, the terrifying explosive flames instantly engulfing their entire figures. The heavy carapace armor on the melee Ogrins didn't buy them much survival time. But their sacrifice, intended to attract the enemy's attention, bought you more opportunities to attack. Accompanied by the subtle sound of promethium rapidly injecting and continuously flowing. You activated your power armor, raised the flamer with both hands, and aimed at the power packs of the Astartes space marines. You pulled the trigger without hesitation. Streams of intensely hot flames, like viscous seawater, instantly engulfed the tall figures of the Astartes space marines. You instantly emptied most of the fuel in the flamer. You abruptly threw aside the still firing flamer and raised the bolter that was already primed and ready. Accompanied by the deafening roar of bolters firing, the exploding bolts almost precisely hit the metal helmets of each Astartes space marine. 4 Astartes space marines, who had just turned to direct their bolter fire at you, had their heads penetrated by the bolts, which exploded inside. The next moment, a massive figure wielding a power hammer forcefully burst through the lingering flames of high temperature on the ground. With his thick lips pursed, he hammered the 3 Astartes space marines, whose power armor had briefly malfunctioned due to the terrifying heat, like he was playing whack-a-mole. Accompanied by the continuous hum of the power hammer and the continuous roar of the bolter. Within a short minute, you and the heavily damaged Ogrin squad successfully killed this Astartes squad from the Truth Seekers chapter. You slowly lowered the bolter, which was still emitting faint wisps of smoke. You let out a violent gasp from deep within your throat. Beneath your silver metal helmet, the intense throbbing of nerves and the rapid rise in blood pressure made your entire body feel as if it were burning. You expressionlessly glanced at the bodies of the Astartes space marines burning in the high-temperature flames. You went forward to check on Cleverhead Grabknock's fat body, which was mostly burned. You quickly comforted him with a few words and ordered the remaining Ogren squad to temporarily retreat and rest on their own. You took a deep breath. Carrying the reloaded bolter, you activated your power armor and rushed out of the flickering flames at top speed. You quickly charged towards the Battle Sisters, who had been attracted by the intense battle just now, you reading, and had temporarily halted their offensive. There's an Astartes chapter ambush ahead of the Hive City. Retreat. Retreat quickly. It's a trap. You struggled to widen your bloodshot eyes. You shouted at the Battle Sisters with all your strength. Inquisitor, Steel Skull, a perfidious liar, a hypocritical traitor, a mouth full of lies. I swear here, the Truth Seekers chapter will be your undying enemy. At this moment, accompanied by the Geller chapter master's furious roar that almost echoed throughout the Hive City entrance. Leman Russ tanks, their engines roaring loudly, completely revealed their terrifying figures that had been hidden for a long time. They all turned their cannons and unleashed a terrifying barrage on the Battle Sisters' position. Mobile phone station new revision upgrade address. Data and bookmarks are synchronized with the computer station. GG free refreshing reading. Streaks of artillery fire slashed across the sky, almost illuminating the entire night. The well-trained Sisters of Battle immediately dispersed in combat squads, taking cover from the fierce bombardment. At the same time, the relaunched Thunderhawk transports swiftly reversed their direction of attack, unleashing twin-linked Lascannons or salvos of missiles to bombard the locations of the Leman Russ tanks. You gradually approached the front lines of the Sisters of Battle. A warning shot from a bolter slammed into your thick shoulder armor. Heretic! You have abandoned the duties of the Inquisition and forsaken the glory of the Emperor. Death is too good for you. The bolters of the Sisters of Battle were trained on your power armor and the exposed silver skull. This is a slanderous accusation by Chaos. The Truth Seekers chapter has likely been corrupted by demons, and I was almost deceived by them. Another Inquisitor from the Demon Hunters may be the real culprit. You slowly raised the bolter in your palm, indicating that you posed no threat. Your words did not sway the agile Sisters of Battle. However, at that moment, the Canoness clad in blood-red power armor, wielding a power claw, suddenly appeared behind the Sisters of Battle. I am Gianna, Canoness of the Order of the Bloody Rose, Inquisitor Steel Skull. Do you still maintain your loyalty to the Emperor? Are you willing to atone and repent for all your sins? She stared at you through the black lenses of her helm's voxcaster, questioning you. As an Inquisitor, I have indeed failed in my duty. I am willing to make a final act of repentance and atonement for my actions, you said to Canoness Gianna without hesitation. Just then, Space Marine Astartes in blue power armor burst from their hidden positions. The Truth Seekers chapter launched a relentless and continuous assault on the Sisters of Battle. The Sisters of Battle, armed with flamers and bolters, first unleashed all the ammunition from their ranged weapons. Then, illuminated by the intense heat and light, they roared and brandished the bayonet blades on their bolters and the roaring chainswords, launching a counter-charge. These Sisters of Battle from the Order of the Bloody Rose were extremely powerful. In a short time, they were able to achieve a 1-to-1 kill ratio against the Space Marine Astartes. The Truth Seekers chapter's momentum was gradually halted, and even pushed back by the Bloody Rose Sisters of Battle. You quickly scanned the increasingly fierce battlefield, searching for any sign of Chapter Master Gellerus. You proposed a decapitation strike to Canoness Gianna. Canoness Gianna first quietly surveyed the situation on the battlefield. Then, she seemed to ponder for a moment, and stared at you deeply. Canoness Gianna still agreed to your request. A squad of Sisters of Battle would cooperate with your operation. But she also stated bluntly, if heretical behavior was discovered during the operation, the squad's target would be immediately changed. You nodded heavily to Canoness Gianna. You gripped the bolter in your palm tightly. You drove your power armor forward, quickly leading a squad of Sisters of Battle towards the front of the battlefield. You passed a Sister of Battle who had just died in battle. With the consent of the other Sisters of Battle in the squad, you picked up the chainsword that had been propping up her corpse. You silently stared at the Sister of Battle's short, white hair and young, delicate face. An uncontrollable surge of anger gradually filled your heart. You had been deceived by the Truth Seekers chapter and the Tzeentchian demons. You would completely wash away this shame with an unbearable and terrible fury, until you died in the final moment. You expressionlessly gripped the roaring chainsword and bolter. You exerted yourself, driving the power armor to quicken the pace of your charge. Rushing towards the nearest space marine Astartes. The squad of Sisters of Battle closely followed behind you, occasionally adjusting the direction of their bolters to eliminate the deadly threats to their battle sisters as they passed. You forcefully swung the chainsword, the rapidly rotating, sharp teeth embedding themselves in the neck of a space marine Astartes who was unable to dodge in time. Where is Gellerus? You widened your blood-red eyes subconsciously, the slightly reflective silver skull occasionally reflecting the intense light of the battlefield. Lies, lies. Everything in the Imperium is a lie. Everything about the Emperor is a lie. Everything about you is a lie. The existence of humanity is a complete and utter lie. At this moment, the space marine Astartes, whose power armor had been sawed open at the chest by the chainsword, seemed to have fallen into a state of extreme madness. He no longer offered any resistance, but instead roared deafeningly at you, who was close at hand. You Khonshu. Battle brother, kill me. She has caught us, kill me quickly. You expressionlessly pressed down hard on the roaring chainsword, cleanly ending his life. You slightly widened your blood-red eyes and took a deep breath of the blood-soaked air. If before you only had suspicions and guesses, now, you could be 100% certain. The Truth Seekers chapter must be tainted by demons, and Chapter Master Gellerus was the source of the corruption. You turned and had a detailed conversation with the squad of Sisters of Battle. One of the Sisters of Battle in the squad immediately made a quick reply to Canoness Gianna. The Sisters of Battle of the Order of the Bloody Rose must make some adjustments. The threat from chaos was far more terrifying than an Astartes chapter turning heretical and rebelling. Just then, accompanied by a gust of fierce wind that suddenly swept past your ears. You seemed to hear terrifying screams from within the Hive City, as well as the terrified cries of countless Hive citizens. You widened your blood-red eyes subconsciously, the blood vessels inside your silver skull throbbing violently. In an instant, you completely understood where the missing chapter master Gellerus was, and what his current goal was. Sacrifice. He wants to sacrifice the entire Hive City's population, to tear open a warp rift, a demon portal connecting to the Immaterium. Notify Canoness Gianna. Even if the Sisters of Battle fight to the last woman, we must immediately storm into the Hive City. Otherwise, this industrial world will completely become a territory of chaos. Sisters of Battle. Charge with me. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. You fearlessly lead the Battle Sister Squad in a charge towards the Hive City entrance. You quickly raise the bolter pistol in your palm, pulling the trigger on the Adeptus Astartes of the Truth Seekers chapter one by one. The Battle Sister Squad behind you also swiftly raised their Godwin-patterned bolters, unleashing a continuous barrage of terrifying firepower upon all heretics before them. The Adeptus Astartes of the Truth Seekers chapter seem to have noticed your movements. They turned their guns, attempting to block your advance. Bolts streak through the air, repeatedly glancing off your ceramite armor, leaving deep, terrifying scratches. Some bolts even narrowly miss your silver metal skull. Just then, as if receiving orders from Canoness Gianna, battle sisters wielding flamers in their palms surge from every corner of the battlefield, driving their blood-red power armor, and quickly approach your position. These battle sisters let out battle roars filled with fury. They actually withstand the bolter fire from the Truth Seekers chapter, approaching the front of their lines, and then unhesitatingly pull the triggers of their flamers. Instantly, streams of incredibly scorching flames completely engulf every nearby Adeptus Astartes, with only a few lucky ones barely escaping the Prometheum firestorm. You seem to hear the tragic screams of the Adeptus Astartes. Those power armors repeatedly scorched by Prometheum flames are nothing more than mobile torture devices. But even so, towering figures heavily enveloped in fiery flames still launch desperate charges towards the Battle Sisters, seemingly wanting to perish together with the Battle Sisters within reach. The next moment, roaring chainswords appear in the palms of the Battle Sisters. They fearlessly charge towards the still burning Adeptus Astartes, engaging in brutal and merciless close combat. In an instant, some Battle Sisters, unable to dodge, are forcefully embraced by Adeptus Astartes, and the terrifying Prometheum flames instantly engulf the towering figures of both sides. There are also Adeptus Astartes whose power armor is forcibly sawed open by the chainswords in the hands of the Battle Sisters. Their necks severed, completely becoming immobile, headless flame torches. You lead the Battle Sister squad, now equipped with chainswords, towards this tragic battle. You continuously swing your roaring chainsword, using your heavy shoulder armor to violently ram into an Astartes charging towards you. However, wisps of promethium flame emanating from the opponent's entire body quickly lick across half of your face. The terrifying heat instantly burns away your skin and flesh, leaving only half of your charred facial bones and silver skull. You abruptly widen your remaining blood-red eye, revealing a terrifying grin exposing your gums and teeth. You can't help but let out a roar, the rapidly rotating chainsword forcibly embedding itself into the opponent's power armor, completely tearing apart the two hearts inside the chest. You violently kick down the still-standing towering body of the Adeptus Astartes. You continue to lead the remaining 7-member Battle Sister squad through the still-burning promethium fire. You finally reach the entrance of the Hive City. At this moment, a significant portion of the local defense forces, having noticed the changing situation in the Hive City, have already turned their direction of attack. Having abandoned darkness and embraced the light, they are engaged in a tragic battle with their former comrades and the Angels, defending their only home. With half of your face bearing extremely terrifying injuries, you take over the command authority of the local defense forces with your blood-stained chainsword, and almost no one dares to resist your tough decision. You expressionlessly order the defected local defense forces to launch a charge towards the gate of the Hive City entrance. Most of the local defense forces only hesitate for a moment before charging forward with their lasguns. At the same time, squads of Battle Sisters also pass through the battlefield burning with scorching flames, quickly arriving behind you. You turn your head to glance at Canoness Gianna approaching this place. You unhesitatingly relinquish command authority, joining the offensive charge on the Hive City entrance while wielding your chainsword. And with the addition of more Battle Sisters, the casualties of the local defense forces and the Adeptus Astartes chapter stationed at the Hive City entrance become even more tragic. You let out another roar, continuous streams of blood flowing down from half of your face, gradually pouring into the interior of the power armor. You seem completely oblivious to this. You violently chop down an Adeptus Astartes trying to stop your advance, the rapidly rotating sharp teeth cutting off the opponent's head. You grimly shake off the blood from the chainsword. You lead the remaining 3 Battle Sisters behind you, quickly charging into the upper Hive City. You almost immediately see Warband leader Gellerus, who is using a large number of Hive City civilians' corpses and flesh to smear the ground, planning to cast a chaos ritual. You even see a familiar figure standing beside him. It is the demon hunter named Amani. Gellerus, Amani, come forth and face your death. You can't help but widen your blood-red single eye, unleashing a terrifying roar at them. At this moment, Warband leader Gellerus, whose face seems to be covered in feather-like marks or fine scales, suddenly turns his head to gaze at you. Lies, lies, lies. He abruptly lets out a burst of angry battle roars that echo all around. Then, Adeptus Astartes wielding chainswords and power weapons quickly charge towards your position. You take a deep breath. You feel as if the nerves and blood vessels beneath your silver skull are burning fiercely. The intense pain from one side of your face also causes your mental will to almost fall into a hazy state. You unhesitatingly activate your power armor, gripping the roaring chainsword in your palm. You swing the chainsword at an Adeptus Astartes coming head-on. In an instant, 2 rapidly rotating chainswords collide fiercely, splashing out countless dazzling sparks. You forcefully swing your other large fist encased in metal armor. The Adeptus Astartes, locked in a stalemate with you, seems to want to withstand it with his metal helmet. Unfortunately, when your heavy fist forcibly smashes most of the metal helmet, countless shattered ceramite metal fragments are inserted into the opponent's face and deep into his head. At the same time, a Battle Sister who has been following behind you also approaches your side wielding a roaring chainsword. The next moment, countless rapidly rotating sharp teeth unhesitatingly embed themselves into the Adeptus Astartes' towering body, quickly tearing apart his power armor and fragile flesh. Immediately afterwards, accompanied by the heavy sound of magnetic boots trampling on the Hive City ground, more Battle Sisters surge into the interior of the Hive City. These Battle Sisters wearing blood-red power armor pass by your side like streaks of red lightning. Extremely ferocious, they charge head-on into the Adeptus Astartes. In an instant, the Truth-Seekers chapter, already few in number and now suffering even greater losses, immediately falls into a great disadvantage in the battle. The remaining 50-odd Adeptus Astartes are forced to stop their charge. They retreat while fighting, and spontaneously form an extremely solid defensive formation around warband leader Gellerus, who is setting up the Chaos Ritual. Just then, Canoness Gianna, with a pure white banner fluttering above her power pack, also joins the battle wielding her power claw. Her lithe figure, heavily encased in blood-red power armor, is far more swift and concise in her movements than the surrounding battle sisters, and even her methods of attack and slaughter are cleaner and more efficient. Countless streams of scalding blood from the Adeptus Astartes almost completely splatter her power armor. You slightly shake your gradually dizzy head. You violently pat your silver skull, where the blood vessels seem about to burst. You casually pick up a power sword dropped by an enemy from the ground. You take a deep breath of the turbid air filled with a strong bloody smell. You swing your chainsword and power sword, rejoining the offensive charge against the Truth-Seekers chapter. However, at this time, the Truth-Seekers chapter, almost in a desperate situation, seems to erupt with the tenacious fighting will that Adeptus Astartes should possess. Even if the fearless battle sisters launch repeated assaults at them at the cost of their lives, it is difficult to break through the defensive formation they have formed in a short period of time. You have just chopped down a heavily injured Adeptus Astartes, but are forced back by power swords swung over in an instant. You subconsciously shift your gaze. You unintentionally see the demon hunter Amani, located beside warband leader Gellerus, slowly raise both hands. You seem to clearly perceive that an extremely powerful wave of chaos sorcery is beginning to rapidly brew in the palms of his hands. Canoness, Amani is the Tzeentch demon spreading corruption. Stop his chaos sorcery, don't let him open a demon gate. You abruptly widen your blood-red single eye, roaring towards the battle sisters without turning your head. For the Emperor, you grit your teeth and let out an earth-shattering roar. You once again activate your power armor covered in battle scars, launching a desperate charge forward, accompanied by your desperate, frenzied assault. Chainswords and power swords of the Adeptus Astartes rain down upon your power armor. Almost in the blink of an eye, terrifying gashes appeared, scattering shattered ceramite shards across the ground. Thanks to the near-indomitable defense of your machine-spirit-blessed power armor, and the agile footwork you dared not seize, you narrowly avoided the follow-up damage from each terrifying attack. With a grimace, you drove your battle-scarred power armor straight into the Truth-Seekers chapter's defensive line. Wielding chainsword and power sword in each hand, you desperately carved out a small space for yourself to survive. Battle Sisters of the Order of the Bloody Rose. The success or failure of destroying this heresy rests on this moment, for the Emperor. Canoness Gianna suddenly unleashed a battle roar. Leading squads of battle sisters, she swiftly advanced, launching another charge. Exploiting the brief openings created by your desperate assault, they gradually tore an even larger breach in the Truth-Seekers' defensive line. For a moment, the terrifying momentum unleashed by these battle sisters, seemingly augmented with great power, shattered the Truth-Seekers' ability to maintain their defensive formation. As more Adeptus Astartes continued to fall, the defensive line that had held you back for so long completely collapsed. However, just as you completely shattered the Truth-Seekers chapter's final defensive line, and you, driving your battered power armor, attempted to reach Amani, who was still brewing his chaos sorcery. A surge of chaos warp energy erupted outwards in rains. Suddenly, Tzeentch's marks, shimmering with a blue halo, materialized on the power armor of every battle sister, branding themselves heavily onto their flesh and blood. Even on the exposed half of your unmarred face, Tzeentch's marks, shimmering with a blue halo, clearly appeared. You instantly felt the agonizing sensation of your strength and stamina rapidly fading away. You could barely grip the power sword and chainsword in your palms, nearly losing your vital weapons. You could only half kneel on the ground, gasping for breath. At this moment, the battle sisters branded with Tzeentch's mark were in no better condition. Their steps faltered, and the strength with which they wielded their weapons gradually weakened. Even more infuriating, each time the re-emboldened Adeptus Astartes slew a battle sister, her already mangled corpse would instantly explode into a cloud of gore, spraying shrapnel in all directions. inflicting both mental and physical trauma upon the battle sisters who were still fighting tenaciously with their formidable will. Heh, didn't expect this, did you? This wasn't a ritual to open a demon portal at all, you've fallen for it. Just then, accompanied by an ethereal, mocking laugh, Amani, whose eyes were swirling with layers of blue light, saw his originally human body rapidly swell. In an instant, a massive figure draped in ornate blue and gold mage robes, its vaguely defined, illusory face always hidden in the shadows of its hood, appeared before everyone, embracing 6 blue-skinned arms. A Tzeentch in horror, a changer of ways. You widened your bloodshot eyes subconsciously, recognizing the name of the Tzeentch demon before you. Heh, a crude and uncouth, foolish human. Oh, your soul isn't an original, is it? The changer of ways, conjuring the sorceress scepter in one of its blue-skinned hands, twisted and morphed its illusory face. It stared straight at you, chuckling as it spoke. It's you, Inquisitor, Steel Skull, a traitor who betrayed his chapter's brotherhood. The next moment, Chapter Master Gallus, who had abruptly ceased the chaos ritual, turned and advanced in his Terminator armor. His face covered in feathers and scale-like markings, he abruptly extended a metal hand and seized your silver metal skull, giving you no time to dodge. Lies. You are a lie. Lies? The Emperor is also a lie. Lies. The path of change? Hail Tzeentch. Chapter Master Gallus, his corruption deepening, roared at you. You wanted to detonate the melta bombs hidden beneath your power pack, but the Tzeentch's mark, which continued to exert its weakening effect, made it nearly impossible for you to move even an inch. As his 5 metal fingers gradually tightened, most of your silver metal skull began to make terrifying sounds of twisting and deforming. Your brain seemed to have suffered irreparable, fatal damage. You could not help but widen your bloodshot eye and let out an irresistible, miserable howl. Boss! Hang in there, I'm coming. At that critical moment, a familiar, honest voice seemed to cut through the barriers of space and time, swiftly reaching your ears, which were streaming with blood. Bolts from a stormbolter relentlessly hammered Chapter Master Gallus's Terminator armor. The impact of the violent explosions forced his towering body backward, also causing him to subconsciously release his grip on your silver metal skull. At the same time, several melta bombs emitting beeping sounds swiftly pierced the lingering chaos warp energy, landing above the Changer of Ways' head, then detonating with a deafening roar. The incredibly terrifying explosive light and scorching heat of the melta bombs instantly engulfed the Changer of Ways' massive form. Its illusory face, hidden beneath its hood, seemed to convulse and shift violently, and it could not help but let out a scream of agony that echoed through the hive city. 3 blue-skinned arms, along with most of the blurry body covered by the blue and gold robe, were instantly evaporated. The massive shockwave from the melta bombs even affected the Adeptus Astartes who were slaughtering the Battle Sisters, giving the Battle Sisters who were stubbornly resisting their attacks a brief opportunity to counterattack. At this moment, you vaguely sensed the gradual dissipation of Tzeentch's mark, and the strength and stamina you had lost were returning to your mortal body. Immediately afterward, a blood-red, agile figure abruptly burst through the lingering scorching heat and leapt toward the Changer of Ways. A power claw, raised high, viciously swung at the Changer of Ways' illusory face hidden in the shadows of its hood. Damn demon! Offer repentance to the Emperor, Canoness Gianna roared from midair. The next moment, accompanied by an exceptionally terrifying scream of agony and the powerful shockwave unleashed by the eruption of chaos warp energy, the Changer of Ways, its head forcibly shattered by the power claw, gradually dissipated before everyone's eyes, completely returning to the warp that belonged to chaos. You struggled to support your bloodied body, the strength and stamina you had just lost completely returned, and were even far greater than before. You forcefully widened your bloodshot eye. You seemed to unexpectedly sense, within the returning power, the malicious blessings sent by Khorne. Relying on the rapidly swelling, terrifying brute strength, you swiftly supported the power armor, which had lost its motive force due to being overly damaged. The power sword and chainsword, tightly gripped in both hands, unhesitatingly hacked and slashed at Chapter Master Gallus, who was close at hand. The thick ceramite shell of his power armor was forcibly shattered by you, emitting a massive cracking sound. Your 2 weapons were deeply embedded inside Chapter Master Gallus's chest, and you took advantage of the momentum to force him to kneel on the ground. You slightly blinked your bloodshot eye, staring intently at Chapter Master Gallus, whose face was covered in even more marks of corruption. Then, without any mercy, you forcefully wrenched your two weapons. Chapter Master Gallus, who was still trying to break free from the weapon's constraints, was completely disemboweled by you, gradually ceasing his final struggles and breathing. You gazed at his gradually chilling, ruined corpse and took a deep breath. Expressionless, you released your grip on the weapons and heavily sat down on the ground. Just then, Canoness Gianna, wielding a power claw, slowly walked up to you in her blood-red power armor. The stench of chaos permeates your body, Inquisitor, Steel Skull. You have been tainted by the power of chaos. Although you have proven your loyalty to the Emperor by preventing the demon's arrival, I cannot stand by and watch you fall into damnation. You must pay the price with your life, and make your final confession and atonement, Canoness Gianna said to you in a forceful and resolute voice. You took a deep breath and nodded slightly in agreement. You made your final request to her with a peaceful expression. Canoness Gianna promised you that she would treat Smarttooth Nashgob and his Ogren squad well. Afterward, you turned your head and smiled at Smarttooth Nashgob, who wanted to come forward but was being restrained by the Battle Sisters. You slowly rose from the ground, kneeling once more before Canoness Gianna. Honorable Inquisitor, may your soul ultimately return to the Golden Throne. As soon as the words left her mouth, a power claw, swirling with azure energy, gently swung down, completely shattering your silver metal skull, which had already been deformed. Your fading, blurry consciousness seemed to hear the angry roars and sobs coming from Smarttooth Nashgob. You slowly sank into an eternity-like darkness. At the same time, an illusory human soul seemed to bow to you, then dissipated into the endless darkness. You seemed to let out a final sigh. You're dead. Simulation ended. Duration, 90 days. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Available options to retain from this simulation are as follows. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket 1. Burner type one-handed flamethrower, common, close black lens bracket. Note: this is one of the most beloved flamethrowers of the Sisters of Battle of the Order of the Bloody Rose. Note: of course, compared to the incinerator-type psychic flamethrower with a larger Promethean capacity and greater spraying power, the burner-type one-handed flamethrower is merely a dessert-level substitute for the Sisters of Battle. Note: woman, you're playing with fire. A black-skinned man from the Salamanders chapter stared at the Sisters of Battle in front of him with great surprise, unable to resist revealing a charming smile. Note: Arsonist of Hearts, open black lens bracket 2, Dominica type drop pod, common, close black lens bracket. Note: this is the standard drop pod for the elite squad of the Sisters of Battle. Each drop pod can carry 5 fully armed Sisters of Battle. Note: usually, this type of drop pod is used to respond to the demands of the Ordo Hereticus. Note: Big Sister, have you ever heard of an iron can falling from the sky? A Hive World child with a dazed look murmured softly, staring at the white-haired Big Sister in front of him. Open black lens bracket 3, Inquisitor's Human Force Feedback Power Armor, Artificer, close black lens bracket. Note: this is a set of Human Force Feedback Power Armor belonging to Inquisitor, Steel Skull, due to the careful modification by the tech servitors of the Tzeentch Warband. Truthseekers, its quality is already comparable to Artificer-crafted power armor. Note: compared to the control method of ordinary Astartes connected through the black carapace, the reaction speed of the force feedback power armor is obviously slower, but for a human, this is a very precious life-saving item. Note: Inquisitor Steel Skull, born on Monday, prayed to the Emperor on Tuesday, faithfully enlisted on Wednesday, judged heretics on Thursday, his lover died in battle on Friday, bravely killed enemies on Saturday, and passed away on Sunday. Note: it is said that the Sisters of Battle of the Order of the Bloody Rose always bring a sad-looking, smart head, who will tell all newly enlisted Sisters of Battle the life story of Inquisitor Steel Skull. Open black lens bracket. Simulation time has exceeded 24 hours, simulator wear and tear not waived, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Cooldown time, 900 hours, 10:1, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Current available cooldown time, 9,143 hours, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Consume cooldown time, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Cooldown time not consumed. Simulator enters natural cooldown. Can waive cooldown at any time, close black lens bracket. Wisps of incense wafted past Luo Sha's nose. His slightly closed eyes suddenly opened, staring at the simulator page in front of him. Luo Sha glanced at the first two reward options, then concentrated all his attention on the third option. Ah, the human force feedback power armor that I've always been thinking about has finally arrived. It's a pity it's a bit late. The defensive capabilities of Terminator power armor are far stronger than ordinary power armor, but it's good to have a spare armor that can be replaced. Moreover, ordinary power armor's speed and weight are more suitable for some small and medium-sized combat missions. Luo Sha narrowed his eyes slightly. He stared at the human force feedback power armor on the simulator and muttered to himself. The next moment, Luo Sha made a choice without hesitation. Dong, accompanied by a heavy sound of objects colliding. A force feedback power armor as tall as 2.5 meters was successfully extracted. It landed heavily on the slightly reflective metal floor. Luo Sha slowly got up from the metal bed and stepped forward. He looked at the power armor in front of him with a smile. Then, he raised a sharp fingertip and gently tapped the ceramite shell that had been completely painted blue. Blue coating, also a Zinj color scheme. Speaking of which, when will I go to see the Ultramarines? Who have as many blue sons and grandsons as hairs on an ox? Thoughts swirling, Luo Sha repeatedly admired the power armor for a while. Then, he went out and called 4 automatic servo robots. He ordered them to lift the power armor and head towards the forge. According to Luo Sha's understanding of the Inquisitors, their human force feedback power armors are basically custom-made according to the user's physique. Therefore, he would need Tech Priest Redditus to modify the size for him to use. At the same time, a complete force feedback system might also be applicable to Terminator power armor. Luo Sha returned to the bustling forge, on the messy forging platform. The Power Fist, whose metal shell had been carefully opened, lay quietly in front of Iron Man David and Redditus. Because it was temporarily fixed, the ancient machine spirit, occasionally angered by Redditus's reckless behavior, could only raise its middle finger to show its contempt. And with Luo Sha's arrival, Redditus, who was floating in midair, first threw down the power fist and quickly stepped forward, driving his anti-gravity engine. Honorable Primarch, have you come to inspect our progress again? Although that damned machine spirit is not very cooperative, our research progress has also begun. Oh, is this a new item you obtained through a miracle? Redditus, whose gaze was wandering around, almost immediately saw the power armor carried down by the 4 automatic servo robots. It quickly passed by Luo Sha and circled around the blue power armor several times. Aha! 80% of the forging components are close to artificer quality. The Primarch's harvest is not bad. Luo Sha smiled slightly. He then said to Redditus, "This is a set of human force feedback power armor. Help me modify the size. You can do whatever you want with the other parts. Well, this power armor pursues speed of movement and combat. I hope you, the Tech Priest, can research some new things." Ha ha ha, Honorable Primarch, that's not a difficult task. Redditus, who jumped up and down in midair several times, driving his anti-gravity engine, became excited. It turned its slightly yellowed, white skull and stared at Iron Man David with the red light in its eye sockets. "My dear David, you can take this damned machine spirit thing and get lost. I don't want to study the Power Fist anymore. I want to modify the power armor for the Primarch. Get lost. Get lost. Don't delay my vigorous thoughts." Hearing Redditus's impolite eviction order, Iron Man David, shaking his metal head, casually picked up the power fist whose metal shell was autonomously bouncing back and installing. The blue light in his eye sockets flickered, staring at the servo skull, and said softly, "Redditus, who has no manners at all, don't look for me if you encounter any difficulties recently, understand? HMPH, am I afraid of you, Honorable Primarch? Look at it. Alright. Stop it. Let's get down to business. Mobile station new revision and upgrade address. Data and bookmarks are synchronized with the computer station. No GG fresh reading." Iron Man David bid farewell to Rorschach for the time being and returned to the upper levels of the base. The forging workshop suddenly became even busier. Standing in place, Rorschach decided to stay for a while to see how Redditus's modification was progressing. The Tech Priest Redditus naturally welcomed this. Thus, under Redditus's reprimands, servo robots began to dismantle the power armor with trepidation. Although Roche had seen Reditus at work several times, the manic and noisy muttering was still unbearable. With a smile, Roche had to find an excuse in time and hurriedly left the forging workshop. Several days later, Roche was at the metal round table, looking down at the information Iron Man David had just handed over. A pile of personnel information about Imperial Heavy Industries and the company's main business. Just then, a servo robot rushed to him in a hurry, trying to express something with its mechanical tentacles. Huh? Reditus asked you to tell me that the modification of the power armor is complete? Roche, with his eyes slightly widened, stared at the servo robot that barely made sign language with its mechanical tentacles, and muttered to himself. Roche looked back at the work documents in front of him, which were still more than a foot thick. He shook his head, stood up, and followed the servo robot towards the forging workshop. By the time Roche arrived at the forging workshop, Reditus, driving an anti-gravity engine, had already hopped over. Honorable Primarch, your power armor has been modified. Not only is the size perfectly fitted, but I have also deliberately added some functions. Hearing the servo skull's boasting, Roche wasn't surprised. His gaze shifted slightly, and he almost immediately saw the blue power armor parked on the ground. At this moment, the power armor, whose overall shape was closer to the Mark X, seemed to be a bit taller than before. On the blue shoulder armor, which slightly reflected a cold light, a white symbol of a lightning bolt superimposed on a skull had been repainted. Honorable Primarch, since you told me before that you wanted speed in terms of action and combat, I have put a lot of thought into it. Reditus, with red light flashing in his eye sockets, stared at his work and said excitedly. The defensive capabilities of the entire power armor have not decreased. After all, they are all plasteel and ceramite components. I took the opportunity to modify the size of some parts to make it look more close-fitting, which was inspired by those tech armors you brought back. Of course, all of the above are not the point. The most important thing is that the arc reactor you brought back has been thoroughly researched by me, and I have copied a part of it and installed it inside the power armor to become an additional auxiliary power source. Behind the power backpack, at the elbow and magnetic boot positions, a pair of connected energy nozzles have been installed, which means that you can greatly increase the speed of attack and charge during combat by controlling the energy ejection of each part. Of course, this also takes time to adapt, but I think this is not a difficult task for you, Primarch. In addition, due to the existence of these energy nozzles, if you have exhausted all of the auxiliary power, you can briefly stay in the air for a period of time, but because plasteel and ceramite are too heavy, if you want to achieve flight like those tech armors, you need a complete overhaul, and you will also lose defensive capabilities in other system positions, which is simply not worth the loss. Roche, with his eyes narrowed, carefully listened to Reditus's series of excited words. After the other party paused briefly, Roche suddenly raised his arm, pointed to the painted pattern on the blue shoulder armor, and said, "What does this mean? Is it a classification of power armor?" "Ha ha ha, as expected, nothing can be hidden from you, Primarch. I think you will have more models of power armor in the future. Instead of classifying them according to the previous models, it is better to create new ones. For example, the current Lightning and Skull represent the speed type and the Mechanicus respectively. If you are not satisfied, I can modify the pattern again." Reditus, suspended in midair, said cautiously to Roche. Roche smiled slightly, shook his head, and said, "No need, this way it's simple and easy to understand. What pattern do you plan to design for the Terminator power armor that has not yet been modified, guns or?" "Primarch, it is a clenched fist. I think the Terminator power armor is a walking mobile tank, used for assault missions or large-scale wars. So, I want to use the fist to represent the strength-type power armor." Reditus, hearing Rock's question, quickly fluctuated up and down and said, Okay, I approve you to do so." Roche pondered for a moment, then nodded in agreement. "Come on, dress me. I'll go experiment with the speed-type power armor. If there's anything wrong, you can modify it as soon as possible." "It's my honor, Primarch. Don't you servo robots have brains? Why don't you come over here quickly?" Along with Reditus's reprimands, servo robots moved their turtle shell-shaped metal bodies, seemingly unwilling to approach Roche. About 20 minutes later, Roche, who had reworn the power armor, shook his heavy metal arms and legs respectively. Afterwards, he couldn't help but sigh. Whether it's the flexibility of the joints or the force feedback of the operation, it's much faster than the previous Terminator power armor. Complete technical means are indeed better than what I guessed and figured out. Of course, all of this is thanks to you, Redditus. Roche praised the servo skull with a smile. Then, he immediately drove the power armor towards the training ground on the upper level of the base. Soon after, Roche returned to the training ground on the first floor of the base. He first controlled the speed-type power armor to perform a simple charge. After finding that the speed and flexibility exceeded expectations, Roche, with an even brighter smile, adjusted his posture and prepared to activate the energy nozzles. Chi. The next moment, along with a dazzling light bursting out from a pair of energy nozzles behind the power backpack, a tall blue figure suddenly rushed forward. Dong. At this moment, Roche, driving the power armor, crashed head-on into a metal dummy with a charging speed several times faster than before. Immediately afterwards, he suddenly waved a metal arm. And with a fleeting energy impact erupting from the energy nozzle behind his elbow, a blue metal iron fist slammed heavily on the metal dummy's chest. Mobile station new revision and upgrade address. Data and bookmarks are synchronized with the computer station. No GG fresh reading, accompanied by a deafening roar that echoed throughout the training ground. The metal dummy was violently struck by a terrifying force far exceeding anything before. The hard metal body instantly shattered into pieces, like an object hit by a high explosive shell, scattering across the metal floor within a 10-meter radius. Luo Sha couldn't help but grin. He immediately stopped his speeding, towering figure. Then, his gaze shifted slightly upwards. Without hesitation, he looked towards the midair. The next second, the pair of energy nozzles located behind the power backpack quickly tilted downwards. Chi, accompanied by bursts of energy that were far more dazzling than before. The incredibly heavy metal body of the power armor slowly rose, gradually ascending into the air. Unfortunately, once the soles of the magnetic boots were 10 meters above the ground, it seemed that the powerful thrust provided by the energy jets could no longer support the entire power armor. Luo Sha, who was filled with excitement, only stayed in the air for about half a minute. Before he fell heavily towards the metal floor. Boom. Luo Sha quickly spread his arms, using the energy nozzles located behind his elbows to maintain his balance. A pair of heavy magnetic boots landed heavily on the metal floor, emitting a deafening roar. Then, he slowly straightened his slightly bent knees, straightening his tall metal body. The first-generation arc reactor has limited power and is not enough to maintain sustained flight. I should find Tony when I have time. First, to see how he plans to deal with Hydra, and second, to get him to fulfill his promise of a second-generation arc reactor. Moreover, Radiatus might need that newly discovered element. Should I introduce Tony to a tech priest? Muttering to himself, Luo Sha slightly turned his head. He cocked his ear to listen to the various internal sounds coming from the power armor. The noisy humming of the arc reactor made him subconsciously shake his head. Next, he controlled this speed-type power armor for several ground tests. After all the tests were basically completed, Luo Sha, with a smile on his face, turned and walked out of the training ground. However, just as he was about to step into the base hall, Iron Man David, with hurried steps, swayed his slightly hunched metallic body, walking towards him. Under the bright light, Iron Man David, with blue light flickering in his eye sockets, said to Luo Sha in front of him, "My lord, something may have happened to our people. Miss Jessica's cell phone signal has just disappeared, and it has been more than 24 hours since her last contact with me. Find out the location and position where the signal disappeared, and, David, what exactly was Jessica doing before?" Luo Sha frowned slightly and drove the power armor into the base hall. Iron Man David slightly turned his body, and his hunched metal back seemed to straighten up instantly. He stared at Luo Sha's profile and continued, "My lord, the location where Miss Jessica disappeared is near the capital of Mexico, in a large slum called Quimohuacan." Wasn't she fighting with the local gangsters in the border city of Mexico? How did she suddenly go deep into the heart of Mexico, and entered the slums? Luo Sha, who was walking towards the metal round table, suddenly stopped. He turned his head and stared at Iron Man David beside him. "My lord, let me report Miss Jessica's activities to you in detail. Miss Jessica initially went to Texas alone to help her good friend Patricia Walker, whom she had known since childhood, successfully escape the exploitation of an entertainment company. This entertainment company, which is mixed with gangster backgrounds, is a subordinate unit of Vought Entertainment. To a certain extent, this is actually your industry. Of course, it has now been integrated into Empire Industries. Iron Man David slightly shook his metal head. He stared at Luo Shaw in front of him, who was slightly frowning, and continued. Although Miss Jessica doesn't know about this relationship, and I haven't revealed it to her, she easily solved the whole incident with her superhuman strength and the gang's death order not to cause trouble. So, the excited Miss Jessica decided to take her friend on a road trip. However, a minor car accident during the trip involved her and her friend in a transportation convoy of a local Mexican gang. This is not a big deal at all. Miss Jessica easily wiped out the entire gang convoy with the plasma pistol you lent her and the combat training she never slacked off. I also helped erase all the surveillance cameras nearby. However, just as Miss Jessica stepped forward to inspect the cargo in the convoy, wanting to collect some spoils, she and her friend accidentally discovered that the convoy not only contained a large amount of cash, but also a batch of human slaves who had been kidnapped and lured from all over the country. Miss Jessica successfully rescued this group of humans, but when she heard them inadvertently reveal that a large number of humans were being transported to Mexico, the hot-blooded Miss Jessica decided to be a lone hero. I originally wanted to report this matter to you completely, but Miss Jessica said that this was a good opportunity to test her combat training. In addition, you didn't pay much attention to it at the time, so I let Miss Jessica and her friend enter the border city of Mexico. This is why Miss Jessica didn't dare to report to you before, and I did it for her. Moreover, their progress was quite smooth. The local gangsters were killed by Miss Jessica alone, and they had to live a life of hiding everywhere. So, limited to the overly low-end network construction level in Mexico and a little bit of slackness, I also subconsciously reduced my attention to Miss Jessica. As soon as the voice fell, Iron Man David bowed slightly to Luo Shaw and said in a heavy tone, "I'm sorry, my lord, all of this is my responsibility." No, David, overall, it's because I trusted Jessica too much and was too indulgent of her behavior. Luo Shaw, with a blank expression, blinked his eyes slightly. He suddenly drove the power armor towards the equipment room. Iron Man David straightened his metal back and stood in place waiting. About a minute later, the Super Phase sword was carried behind the power backpack. Luo Shaw, holding a burst pistol in his palm, walked out of the equipment room again. He walked directly to Iron Man David. The slightly squinted cyan wolf pupils stared at the other party's blue light flickering eye sockets and said, "David, go bring a team of fully armed automatic servo robots and a team of automatic machine bees. At the same time, prepare the Valkyrie, we are going to bring back the only battle sister in the team." "Yes, my lord," Iron Man David, whose mechanical voice seemed to reveal a cold murderous intent, bowed again. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.